Hello and welcome. I'm Kathy with Waste.Not.Upcycled. I'm a full-time teacher and a part-time reseller. In today's video, I'm creating 4 projects using the March Sonnet's Curated Maker Box. And you're gonna watch me pivot quite a bit. So that's the magical word for this video, pivot. Let's go ahead and take a peek at what's inside her box. Sonnet's Maker Box comes so beautifully packaged every single month. So every month in her box comes 2 different recycled decoupage papers. This first one is gorgeous. It's like a watercolored spring. Oh my gosh, this is gonna be great. I think I'm gonna capture the whole picture in some kind of a frame. And then I love this plaid, it's gorgeous. Also in every box is the Painted Photographer's rice paper. And what I love about it is there's usually 3 pictures and then one adorable one. This must be the Marshland Guardian. I can't wait to figure out what to do with that. A surprise every month. And so she put in this adorable bunny. And then Sweet Pickins Milk Paint. This must be the Completely Coral. She also includes 2 DIY paints. And it looks like that's cake batter and water lily. And then 2 fusion mineral paints, Acacia pear and damask, I think is how you say it. These are wonderful because I get to spoil myself and play with paints that I not normally would purchase. And I once in a while spoil myself and buy a full size. Project 1 is probably the project that I pivot the most in. So I had this white bench or step stool that I had already painted and I wanted to get the Marshland Guardian on it. I did notice that both fusion paints match, so I'll be using that. I'm gonna go ahead and I want to distress it. So for the edges of this, I'm using the water method in which you just paint water onto it and tear it. I'm gonna do this for all the edges. And I really like how it turned out. Okay, so here's the first pivot. I can't recreate all this and it doesn't fit all the way across the bench, right? So I'm gonna have to go ahead and I'm gonna use the water method, take that part out. I'll reuse it in another project for sure. But yeah, I'm gonna have to take this whole thing out. I'm gonna go ahead and mist it with water. This helps to loosen those fibers up and make it easier to work with, less wrinkles. And I'm going to be using Decoupage Transfer Gel by Fusion. Since it's already white, I am not needing to paint the background white. It'll pop out on its own. And I'm gonna go ahead and just start with 1 strip of Decoupage, the transfer paint, which makes it easier. And then once it's secure, I'm just gonna work my way down. And I'm gonna go back over this to make sure that this decoupage paper is sealed down. I let this project dry overnight and now I have my work cut out for me. I'm gonna go ahead and use a couple different colors together to pull in the side that Connie created. But at the same time, I know it's not gonna match perfectly, so I'm gonna overlap that paint onto her side as well to kind of blend it all together. Using Seaside and Chateau by Fusion, as well as the colors that came in this month's maker box. So I'm just gonna go ahead and paint this side over and then overlap onto the other side. And you will notice that I tend, you might have seen it in my other videos as well, when it comes to using decoupage or transfers, I like to blend those in like they're a part of the piece. So I will typically paint over them as well. So you're gonna see me painting over it. Hopefully you guys are not cringing too much at that. But in the end, it'll turn out okay. And this is truly just me experimenting with different colors and just trying different things to see what works so that it all blends together. So I'm gonna just keep going at it with different colors. And then you'll also watch me kind of wipe it down with a cloth. I use a little bit of water. Like, it is a whole hot process. I really want this gorgeous painting to pop out, so I'm just going to surround it with lighter colors and then blend it in. And next I'm going to be using the DIY paint that came in Sonnet's box because it matches that blue perfectly. Also going to pull in Seaside by Fusion. This was given in a past box as well. And I think this will look good mixed in with the blue as well. So would it have been easier to just fit this awesome print onto something that it fit perfectly onto? Of course, but I'm a little bit stubborn and I really wanted it on this step stool. I wanted it as a riser. I thought it was super cute on this specifically. And the nice thing is, like, this whole process for me is therapeutic. Like, I'm just relaxing and it's quiet, it's peaceful. So I'm enjoying this process. As you could tell, sometimes the inner child comes out in me and I literally finger paint. I feel like I have more control. I'm curious if any of you guys paint as well with your fingers once in a while. I'm adding in the Acadia Pear by Fusion. I'm just going to add in that green to kind of blend it across. And then there is a clear, like you can see it as clear as day where that decoupage ends on the bench. So I am nowhere near done. It's driving me crazy, but I'm going to let this dry and I'll come back to it and fix it up. So I'm going to go ahead and, now that it's dry, I'm going to sand throughout the whole piece to see if I can kind of blend it and make it look better. This is where the project needs some major pivoting. See if you could see where I make a big mistake. So yep, I was heavy-handed and had ripped some of that decoupage and went back and ripped other places so that the line wasn't as clear as it was before, and painted over that to kind of blend it in. This is a big pivoting moment. So I'm going to blend it in, but I decided to go in with this decoupage paper that had lettering, and I pulled it out, ripped it, and I am going to kind of put it into the background. This project was a great reminder that as a creator, it is so okay and important to take those turns and to roll with it. Kind of like life, right? I'm actually really pleased as I begin to lay these pieces down at how it's turning out. As I'm getting these final pieces down, I decide to go back in, and I think I'm going to paint it to just so that these pieces kind of blend in with the background. So I'm going to take my paintbrush, take in that paint, and just kind of blend over the papers in different areas. I am not sanding anything anymore, but I'm really, really happy with how this turns out. I'm going to share this when it's finished. Definitely stay tuned to the very end so you can see everything combined. On to project 2, and I'm going to use that cute bunny napkin, but I'm finally using milk paint. You guys, just need to admit something. I've never painted with milk paint before, so I'm excited to use it. I have a feeling I'll be using it a lot more. So basically, you're mixing the powder milk paint with equal part water, and I'm going to whisk it together and then set it on the side for a good 10 minutes. And from what I've heard, it needs to be the consistency of a melted milkshake. While that's on the side, I'm going to go ahead and cut out this adorable bunny. And I wanted it to be pretty precise, so I'm going to cut it out with scissors. I've cut out the bunny. I'm deciding where I'm going to put it, and I'm kind of debating whether or not I'm going to just have that plain background or if I'm going to use the decoupage paper that has that cute plaid. So I'm thinking I'm going to use the plaid. Because I'm using the plaid, I don't want the plaid to show through the bunny once I decoupage it. So I'm going to go ahead, and what I did was I flipped it over and I put some white paint on the back of the bunny. And that way, when I let it dry, the bunny will kind of pop and be separated from the plaid. Here I am figuring out the exact size, and I'm going to go ahead and scissor cut the plaid out. Okay, my paint is done, so I'm going to go ahead, and I actually really liked how smoothly this paint went on. And I'm painting all around the edges of it. I'm not super careful because this is going to have like kind of that distressed look as well. That's kind of how most of my stuff looks. But I'm going to paint all the edges and then let that dry and move on to the next step. So the milk paint has dried and I'm ready to use my fusion gel. And I'm going to go ahead and mist the decoupage paper. I added one strip of like that paint glue and put it on the top. And I'm going to work my way down so that I can get those wrinkles out. I typically use my hands to go ahead and do it. I know that some people like to use like plastic wrap or something like that to go over it. But as I go, I'm going to kind of work those wrinkles out. Once I'm comfortable with how it's laid out, I'm going to go ahead and go over with a light coat. And then I'm going to be putting that bunny right on top. So I don't even need to decoupage the bottom of that bunny. It's going to stick right on top of this project. There it is. It's so cute. I'm going to mist this to make it a little bit easier. It was tricky painting the bottom of it because it's so thin, but let's see how it works. Looks good. as I'm getting this adorable little bunny down, I love how it looks. I am thinking to myself, do I want to add more? I mean, I really like the simple look of this, but I felt like I wanted to pivot and add a little bit more to it. Prior to adding details, I decided to go ahead and get that overlapping part off. I recommend using a razor blade. I just had a Cricut tool nearby, and I'm using my fingernails as well to kind of pull that off. So I decided to use stamps, and then I have permanent ink. I'm using a green color. I didn't want to use black. I felt like I wanted something very light, and I tested it out, and I'm pretty pleased with how that's gonna look. So I'm gonna go ahead and randomly stamp hop throughout this whole picture. The only thing I know is I do not want it to overlap onto the bunny. And I'm gonna go ahead and stamp the whole thing all over. This picture to look like it's been around for a while, so I covered up the actual picture, and I'm just doing a very quick sand around the edges, just edges and corners. That's it. This little bunny is so adorable. I'm excited I have more prints to play around with and put onto projects. For project number 3, I'm using these beautiful flowers by the painted photographer, and these pictures were just screaming to me like a cute little garden carrier decor. Since I'm going to go ahead and paint this, I want to make sure that the wording doesn't show through. I'm going to just give it a very quick sand, and then I'm deciding to use Acadia Pear, the Fusion Mineral Paint. I think that green color is going to look really good on it. I love these adorable worn out tools. Okay, time to paint. I'm gonna go ahead and paint the whole outside and the whole inside. I'm using Fusion Mineral Paint. This is the Acadia Pear. And what I love the most about the Fusion paint is it goes on really smooth, and there is a top coat built into it. So I do not need to add a top coat. The mini gardening box is dry. I'm gonna go ahead and add on the decoupage. I'm going to save this one larger picture to frame up later, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually just going to cut these out. I know that I'm going to go back in after they're applied, and I'm going to paint around them and then sand them up so they have like kind of a built-in look to them. I'm going to go ahead and add on these beautiful pictures now that it's dry, and I'm going to use that Fusion Decoupage and Transfer Gel. And these, I'm going to mist it first. It's going to make it easier to get on there. These are smaller projects, so they're much easier to glue directly on. So I'm going to set that on the side to dry, and while that's drying, I decided to use terracotta pots in this project. I'm going to stack them inside the box, just about, I think I'm going to do 3 or 4, and I want to just paint the rims up. So I pulled out all my paints that I've gotten from past Sonnet maker boxes that all had that spring-like look to it. And I'm going to go ahead and paint them very quickly because I want them to have that like worn out, sitting outside kind of look to them, just the rim. All the terracotta pots that I have found at garage sales. I highly recommend when you're garage sailing, look around and gobble those up. A lot of people just want to get rid of them for dirt cheap, and they're great add-ons for decor projects or even for yourself. Remember how I said I like to save those little scraps? So when I cut out the beautiful flowers, I did keep what was around it. And I'm gonna go ahead and rip those up, and I'm gonna be adding those onto the gardening tools along with some paint. I'm gonna go ahead and add some twine, just twine these guys together and they'll be good to add inside the box. Now to finish up this project, I'm just gonna tidy up this flower. I'm gonna paint around it, and then after that paint dries, I'm gonna sand and kind of distress the actual decoupage piece so it doesn't blend so perfectly. Project 1 and 3 will be getting big top, clear coat to seal it up. Okay, on to project number 4. This last project, I am using this chalkboard frame that perfectly fits this Roycycle decoupage paper. It is so perfect. So I'm just framing it out, and then I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to cut it. DIY paint that came in the maker's box this month perfectly matches this picture, so I'm going to be using that for the frame along with another paint. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and paint the inside white because I want the picture to completely pop. So I'm going to go ahead and paint it with 2 coats of paint and let that dry. This frame needs a lot of help, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the DIY yellow and blue. I'm going to start out actually with the yellow, and I'm just going to spot paint all around the frame. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to go back over it later with the blue, and I want to give the illusion that it was originally painted white at one time, yellow at another time, and blue, and it's going to kind of have an old chippy look to it. Once I've painted all around, I'm going to go ahead and use a wax cube. I mean, it'd be better to use a white one, but I just happen to have red. And this is similar to the Vaseline method of chipping the paint or making it kind of look distressed. So I'm going to go ahead and take a wax cube, and all around this frame, I'm just going to randomly rub the wax cube. And basically what it's doing is it's creating a barrier so that when I go over and paint that blue, all of the parts that were waxed are going to rub off much easier when I sand. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and add on that blue paint, and I'm going to paint this over the whole frame. I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to sand it. So when I sand, I'm actually not using sandpaper for this. I'm using one of those flat Brillo pads. and coming along with a cloth and rubbing it through. So I'm gonna go ahead and do sand around the whole edge of this. You can tell where that wax was because it's coming off much easier in those areas. So the whole frame is finished and it's time to get this giant decoupage down. I'm pretty nervous, I'm not gonna lie. This is a big piece, and the good news is I'm not going to look for perfection because the way the watercolors kind of look, it already has texture to it. So if there's wrinkles, it's not a big deal. I'll go back in and sand it. So I go ahead and do a starter strip. Decide to mist it as I go along rather than misting the whole giant piece. I'm going to go in and I'm going to put down that like transfer gel section by section. It's pretty much the only way I think I can manage it. So I wrestled with this for quite a while, trying to get this large decoupage paper on here, but I managed to do it. And once I got everything done and complete, I'm gonna rough edge around it. I actually let it dry first overnight, and then I go around the edges and do a quick rough edging. So I basically want this to look like it's been on here for quite a while, and it's starting to fade around the edges. Here's a peek at the projects I made using Sonnet's March Maker Box. Definitely leave a comment down below and let me know which one was your favorite. I'm thinking I really liked the Marshland Guardian bench. So thanks for taking the time to watch today's video. If you are currently a subscriber, thank you so much. I appreciate you. If you're not yet subscribing, I would love for you to hit that bell notification and follow along on my journey. I have a couple great videos already in the works. Next week, I'm so excited to share out that I will be taking regular household items and turning them into fun spring items. So save those egg cartons, save those toilet paper tubes, and definitely be back to visit with me. Thanks for watching.